Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of United Talks podcast. And today we're going to be breaking down or taking a deep dive into the transfer window. I've done a review basically about the whole transfer window and what has happened and everything in between. And I did it with Isaiah Cordero, a TikToker and a streamer and content creator. We talked deeply about some of the signings and what we thought about, or try to rate the signings overall and all of that. But today's episode is a deep dive into what has been, one of the most dramatic, ruthless and revealing transfer windows in recent history. And we're talking about Sir Jim Ratcliffe's bold new strategy of Rasmus Højlund with regards to Rasmus Højlund's heartbreaking exit, Benjamin Šeško's arrival, Ruben Amorim's push for midfield reinforcements, and what it all means for the future of Manchester United as a whole. By the end of this episode, you'll understand why United's transfer dealings this summer were unlike anything we've seen before, and why it could either be the start of a new era or a massive gamble. So let's get into it. Now, let's start with a story that has, defined this summer. Rasmus Højlund leaving United and Benjamin Šeško coming in. So one striker out, one striker in. Now, Højlund didn't just leave. He grew up supporting United. And right up until the final days of the transfer window, he was telling people he wanted to fight for his place. But the writing was on the wall. First, he was dropped on the US tour. Then he wasn't even in the squad for the Arsenal opener. But typically he was in the US tour, but was dropped, I think, towards the end of the tour. And by the time Sesko was being announced, Højlund was already being shown the door. Now, this was cold, calculated. It was a cold, calculated decision by Ratcliffe's new football hierarchy. Ruben Amorim, Jason Wilcox, and Omar Berrada looked at Højlund's record: 10 goals in 52 games last season. Only 4 of those were in the league. And he decided he wasn't, the striker to take United forward. Harsh? Maybe. But this is a new reality at Old Trafford. No sentiment, no second chances. And this is basically Omar Berrada's way of dealing with certain things like that. If it doesn't work, then we have to shape the person out. Obviously, Rasmus Højlund was signed under Ten Hag, so he was signed under the Glazers. Now that the Ineos have footballing control, it is basically their decision to decide what happens with the striker or striking department. I wish that Højlund stayed so that he could fight for his place and basically challenge Šeško to do better as well as other things, right? But it is what it is. We have to kind of, take it as it is. And if he goes there and does well, he can come back and challenge. You never know. But Højlund was devastated. By all accounts, he was heartbroken to leave at just 22 years old. And obviously, the fans did not help. The fans hounded this player. The fans hounded him. And they wanted something out of, a player who could potentially do better or do even better than he is doing right now. But it is what it is. It got to the point where Man United had to let him go. Now, basically, Højlund was devastated, as I said, living at just 22. His ceiling is still high. He still has a lot of improvement to do. It was a 6 million loan fee plus a 44 million euros buyout and buy option that becomes an obligation if they reach Champions League. Obviously, they're going to reach Champions League. If they're going to win, they're going to qualify for Champions League next season, and that's potentially 50 million euros off the books for United. Now, entered Benjamin Šeško at 22. He's seen as a striker with the higher ceiling. United spent 85 million euros to get him, and Director of Recruitment Christopher Vivell pushed hard for that deal, given his links with Šeško from his Red Bull days. The decision to go for Šeško over someone like Oli Watkins was all about age, resale value, and future potential. So what does this say about Ratcliffe's vision? Simple. United are done United are done clinging to players bought by the old regime. Højlund represented the past, Šeško represents the future. So it is what it is. Like I said, it was signed under Erik ten Hag and the old regime at United. And then basically the next part of this whole talk is with regards to the Project 90 and Ratcliffe's risk-taking, like with the Project 90 and Jim Ratcliffe's risk-taking. Let's zoom out of the bigger picture. I mean, Sir Jim Ratcliffe's approach this summer has been aggressive, even risky, right? United spent, big before making sales. A direct gamble on being able to balance the books later. They've already poured more than £200 million into signings, but behind the scenes, they are working on what's called a Project 90, and that's an internal goal of improving the balance sheets by £90 million every year through commercial deals, cost-cutting, and smarter player trading. Now, the key difference, under Ratcliffe, United will spend aggressively where they believe it matters, even if it stretches the rules on financial sustainability. That's why they moved for Šeško and Mbeumo before getting significant exits done. This is in stark contrast to the Glazers' years, where big moves often stalled because of financial caution. Now, the Glazers still have to sign off on deals, but Ratcliffe's fingerprints are all over the summer. Bold, ruthless, and unsentimental. Now, if we're going to talk about that, you could tell that obviously they're going aggressive, even though the media is pushing that Man United are spending more and making less. They're going aggressive with the plan to earn £90 million a year, in whatever way possible. And obviously, they're going to be making that money and then obviously putting their money in and investing. And not that, they've gotten most of the things right, but it takes time, right? Now, if we're going to talk about, the midfield, and if we're going to talk about like all things that with regards to the signings, like Amorim's midfield frustration and Baleba's push, we'll talk about midfield because this is where Ruben Amorim was left a little disappointed. Obviously, the media is pushing a different narrative. They're talking about Kobbie Mainoo and focusing on, shoehorning Bruno Fernandes in positions where he doesn't fit and all of that. But if we're going to talk details, we're going to break it down into nitty-gritty and stuff. We'll talk about the midfield and everything in between. So his top target was Carlos Baleba from Brighton. Amorim saw, him as a perfect number 8 or number 6 defensive midfielder screener for his system. Explosive, dynamic, able to carry the ball through the midfield. United even agreed personal terms, and Baleba was keen on the move after speaking with teammates like Mbeumo and Onana. But Brighton priced him like Moises Caicedo. We're talking about 100 million plus here, and United balked. And Amorim had to settle without the midfield reinforcements he wanted the most. Instead, United head into the season relying heavily on Bruno Fernandes, Casemiro, and Manuel Ugarte. And then there is Kobbie Mainoo as well. The academy graduate wanted a loan because he doesn't see a clear path to minutes behind Bruno. But United blocked that, and his situation remains a delicate one, and it's something that the fans will be watching closely, especially given the club's proud youth tradition, which is about to go in tatters if Man United let go of Mainoo and we have only Tyler Fredrickson from the academy. Unless maybe they're going to push some players into the first team like Sesko Kone. You never can tell. And then I heard something that Gabriel Biancheri is another player that they stopped from going on loan so that he could, find a pathway into the first team. Maybe he could play as one of those attacking tens or something in games to come. So yeah, these are the things that we need to think. Like yesterday, I posted a clip on our socials where I talked about where Troy Deeney was cooking Alex Crook with regards to Man United and the midfield situation and all of that. And Troy Deeney spoke some facts. You need to go watch it on our channel. He spoke some facts, and I was surprised that Troy Deeney was speaking, in support of certain things, especially with Bruno, and everybody saying Bruno is a problem and all of that. I'm going to do another video talking about Amorim's system because there seems to be a lot of argument about Amorim's system not working and all of that. Meanwhile, Man United have 1 win, 1 draw, 1 loss. A good start to the season, 4 points from possible 9. And, it is, what most teams would have craved for. 4 points from possible 9, even I think about a point or two ahead of Man City. So it is what it is. We have to, deal with it as we go. With regards to goalkeeper shake-up, this is another fascinating subplot in this summer, right? Another fascinating subplot in this summer was in goal. United didn't plan to sign a goalkeeper until Andre Onana returned to training with a hamstring injury. That set alarm bells ringing. Amorim was already concerned about Onana's form, and suddenly Alderweireld was starting Premier League games. So United moved quickly and brought in Senne Lammens from Royal Antwerp for around 25 million euros, right? At just 23, he's seen as a future number one. But for Belgium, Amorim wanted Emiliano Martinez instead from Aston Villa. So basically, he was seen as the replacement for Thibaut Courtois, or you call him the junior Courtois, the future number one for Belgium. But Amorim actually wanted Emiliano Martinez from Aston Villa. The World Cup winner even pleaded to join, but the finances made it impossible. Now, for now, for now, Lammens will compete with Onana and Bayende and Tom Heaton, and it's a crowded group. But make no mistake, United want Lammens to eventually take over. Now, with regards to that, obviously Manchester United had signed a new goalkeeper, and it's been revealed he's got his jersey number, he's number 31, and all of that. With regards to that, we need to also talk about the exits. Exits and the end of the Garnacho saga, basically, just to give you an understanding of what was going on there. You can't forget the departures, because some huge names left Old Trafford this summer. The most dramatic one, Alejandro Garnacho. After so many months of tension with Amorim, dating back to last December, it became inevitable. Garnacho wanted Chelsea, Amorim wanted him gone. And I did a video some weeks ago talking about Garnacho and him being done at United. And I was like, is Garnacho done at Man United? But in the end, he went for £40 million plus a sell-on clause of 10%. That's below the market value, but United decided to cut ties. Obviously, it's profit, but it's below market value. Antony followed as well, returning to Real Betis on a permanent deal after his loan. And the fee, 22 million euros plus add-ons, which is a massive drop from 100 million euros or 85 million euros or whatever is reported in media that United originally paid to Ajax. Now, Antony obviously has a 50% sell-on clause for any profit or any transfer that was made to any club for Antony. Then for Marcus Rashford, who finally secured his dream move to Barcelona, saving United around £15 million in wages, and Jadon Sancho went to Villa on loan, with the Midlands club covering most of his massive salary, which is about 80%. And then as well, potentially the remaining 20% balance is going to be covered in bonuses, right? All told, United brought in about £80 million from sales and loans, and more to come if Højlund, more to come if Højlund's deal goes through. Not quite the 100 million target, or not quite the 100 million pound target that they set, or 90 million pounds target that they set, but close enough to keep the books balanced. For example, you think about the 40 million pounds that Garnacho went for, and then the around 18 million pounds plus add-ons for Antony, that is around 58 million pounds. And then you have the 15 million pounds saved from Rashford, which takes it to around 60-70 million pounds. And then you have the Jadon Sancho deal as well, gets a 6 million, plus Rasmus gets a 6 million. So that's around 80 million pounds, which is far from, maybe 10 million pounds far from the target. So there's still Tyrell Malacia to go, and all of that. And there is potentially the sale of Andre Onana if that comes through, as we've been hearing rumors that he's potentially a target for Saudi clubs and also a target for Turkish clubs like Trabzonspor, or who asked about Andre Onana the last couple of days. And we've seen that in the rumors, like Manchester United are open to selling Andrew Onana to Saudi Arabia as the Pro League transfer window remains open. Same with that Trabzonspor have approached Manchester United regarding a loan move for Andrew Onana. So only time will tell if we make that happen. Then on the other hand, to just kind of wrap this whole thing up, what do we make of this transfer window? You know, we've done the review, we've talked about it. Many people have talked about what we've done and how we've signed players. On what do we make of this window? On one hand, United were ruthless and decisive. They backed Amorim, reshaped the squad, spent big on young, high potential players like Šeško, Euro, Bumo, Cunha, and the likes. I mean, if you think about it, Euro came under Ten Hag, no doubt, but he started playing under Ruben Amorim because he was injured at the beginning of the season. But also, we need to also talk about how Ruben Amorim changed the entire forward line. We had a forward line that went with, I think, for the most part, Bruno, Rasmus Højlund, and Garnacho. Garnacho and Bruno playing as a 10, and Rasmus Højlund as a striker. Chances weren't created, especially when Garnacho was the ball carrier. He wouldn't create chances. So we brought a person in, Bumo, who can cross more, who can score goals. Garnacho wasn't scoring goals, but Bumo scores goals. Then you have Bruno being moved to the 10, to the 6, and then we have Cunha, who also scores goals. So it kind of changed the entire forward line. And Cunha could also play as a forward, as a striker, even though I wouldn't like him to play as a striker. But there's multiple combinations in that situation. And we have Joshua Zirkzee as well, who could actually do a job there as a striker and playing as a 10 or 9.5, as the case may be. So we need to actually think about, those things and those nuances, right? On the other hand, they took major risks, like letting go fan favorites and relying on financial gambles and, missing out on their top target, which is some of the things that happened. This window shows us that the Ratcliffe era will not be sentimental. It's about building a younger, more dynamic squad that can compete at the highest level, even if it means making unpopular decisions along the way. The big question will now be whether the gambles will pay off. Will Sesko deliver more than Højlund? There's already a news going on about Benjamin Šeško and his comments on international break with regards to what the situation with the Premier League is. He says Šeško talked about his Manchester United move, and he says the level of matches is certainly much higher, and the player and the teammates are also at a higher level. After all, the English football is at the highest level in the world of football. But I am very much looking forward to the coming period. Also, because I am getting better and faster in every training session, and I am also progressing in my football mentality every day. This is Benjamin Šeško speaking about his move to Manchester United. And basically, Sky Sports, as always, trying to magnify the situation and talk about it like, oh, he's lacking confidence, this, that. But you don't push a narrative from someone who's just talking about, oh, I'm coming to a new league and I'm trying to adapt. That's pretty much what he's saying in totality. So, the window tells us that Ratcliffe are very ruthless and they're not sentimental. They don't attach sentiment, obviously. Also, it's all about building a younger, more dynamic squad that can also compete at the highest level, even if it means making unpopular decisions along the way. The big question is whether these gambles will pay off. Will Sesko also deliver more than Højlund? Will Menu stay and thrive or eventually walk away? And will Amorim regret not getting the midfield powerhouse he craved? It's not even Amorim's choice to get the midfield powerhouse that he craved. He tried to get it, and then obviously finances and all the things that happened couldn't make it happen, especially for the midfield and all the targets that were linked. Now, only time will tell, but one thing's for sure, this was actually a transfer window that changed Manchester United's identity, and the effects will be felt for years to come, right? It's either it's going to change it for positive or for negative. We shall, the only time will tell. But that's basically all about it with regards to Ineos's or Sir Jim Ratcliffe's big gamble. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to subscribe and leave a review or a comment in the comment section. Let's know in the comment section. Do you think, this is my question to you all, do you think that Ruben Amorim and Jim Ratcliffe made the right call this summer, or have United taken too big a risk? So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for liking, sharing, and subscribing. If you haven't already, please do like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't have to miss anything as it relates to Manchester United. I'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much. We've crossed a milestone and we're heading to another one. Thank you so much for your subscription, your comments. I try as much as possible to reply as many as I can. But thank you, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care, goodbye, and God bless.